Hello, so here we are at Tenby in Pembrokeshire, and it's quite early in the morning, and I am going to try and come down to the beach and do some mark making. And it's quite fortunate because it's actually been rather windy and cold, and now hopefully you can see the sun coming up and it's much less windy and cold. So I'm going to walk along and down to the wonderful beach, and hopefully you can hear me because there's some traffic noise in the background. Hello, so I just thought I'd show my face. I hope you can hear me against the din of the rubbish collectors. I thought he'd gone off in the direction I'm walking into the distance, and no sooner had I started the video just now that he came back again. So there we are. Anyway, round two. I was just saying it's much calmer this morning. It was very windy yesterday and really bitterly cold. So it's a change of scene for me, and I've just been here in Pembrokeshire for a few days, and I just thought I would share with you some of Tenby, which is where I am at the moment. And I'm going to try some mark making in a sort of completely different location to what you usually see me in. And I've been here a few days, and I've been doing some drawing, but not a lot. And it's been a little bit tricky because it's not what I'm used to, all these things about change. So anyway, I'm not going to dwell on that for now. I'm going to turn the camera around now and continue sharing with you my walk down the promenade to the harbour, so that you can get a sense of the scenery. Okay, so I'm coming up more to the harbour now. As you can see, the tide is in, and I'm hoping that you can see some of the detail, but of course the sun is coming up and shining in my direction, so it might be a little bit tricky whilst I'm walking in this direction. But I thought I'd just share some of the general hubbub that's happening in the harbour this morning. And it's a Friday, so I don't know if this makes it busier. I'm a little bit earlier than I have been coming along. Just move so that you can see and maybe swing round. There's a dinghy in that little bay there, and hopefully you can see the sort of the hubbub of everything. Busy, a little bit busier than usual, but as I say, I'm a little bit early. Anyway, I'm going to get started with some drawing. May sort of start a bit further along from where I've come, actually. I'm going to try some mark making today. Okay, so I nearly forgot to show you this. So this is the start point of some mark making, and if I just show you the sort of inspiration of the view. I'm trying not to be representation, I'm trying to be looser, and I'm trying to do my usual mark making. So I kind of purposely just did some of this page. I didn't want to cover the whole page. I want to move on to the harbour area, and I'm probably going to start working over the top of some of this. And obviously got the bottom half of the paper as it looks now, but I'm probably going to just keep turning it now, so that I can start getting some of the marks and shapes without anything being literal. And that's been really tricky for me down here. I found that I was using a concertina and I went straight back into representational, even though that wasn't what I wanted, and it was very frustrating. So I think in a way I started wrong. I should started in a way that made it more tricky for me, I should say. And this sheet of mark making is already enabling me to be looser, which is nice. And I'm glad that the wind has dropped so I can work a little bit bigger. This is an A2, and it's the same as when I was doing my panoramic views. It's the same size of paper I was using for that marking seasons project. So I'm glad I've done this, because yesterday I was thinking if the wind didn't drop I would have to do it at A3, which would make it quite small when it's folded up. So we'll see how I get on as I move on to some in some ways more tricky areas, because the harbour is obviously full of boats and things like this. But what I'm going to try and do is get some of the bigger shapes and marks and lines in without falling into the trap that I have done. Okay, so I've moved to a different location now. I don't usually move locations when I'm doing this type of work, but in this case I wanted to capture a whole mix of things in this piece that I'm going to fold up. It's kind of like a trial really for a number of other things that I'm going to be doing, including some course content for a sketchbook course. But anyway, what I am doing here is I'm superimposing to a point. I'm looking at spaces, places where I can superimpose, where there's either space or where there's something that has a sort of a connection with what I superimpose. And I'll twiddle around because actually some of it I've done in one direction, some of it in another, as usual. And I'm going to try and show you these wonderful ladders that I haven't actually incorporated much into this piece yet. I will do. And I'm sorry if the light is really glistening. I'm not actually trying really to capture the light in this piece. I mean, I might do to a point, but that's not really the main aim of it. The main aim is to create a real mix of mark making that I could subsequently fold up. And so I have got multiple inspiration sources here. The Harbour is what I'm looking at now, and I'm superimposing elements. And if you can see, but if I zoom in, you can see some of the net elements and some of the red pots which are inspired by the pots over there. So hopefully that makes some sense. I didn't say what I was using, but I'm using my usual mixed media approach here. So I have some inks in here, more than I would usually have actually, just because I'm on a trip. And I have got a mix of some paint in here and some water-soluble woodies and Inktense pencils, a couple of scrapers, a palette knife, just a flat-headed brush, this one here, so I can scrape the ink across and make marks. And also I've got a dip pen. And that's kind of about it really, and also some of my compressed charcoal. So I shall press on with my studies. Hey, so I'm back in the studio up northwest, and it's raining and a bit murky, and I'm trying to sort things out. But as I do, I've actually folded the sheet into a booklet, and I thought I'd just share it with you. So get it open, then I can get it centralised. Oh, wrong way. Maybe it'll be better if I do it that way. Hopefully you can see that. Let me put it up a bit. Okay, so that's my first page. I actually rather like the first page. I think what's nice about it is you've got this kind of variety of types of mark and line, and these of course were originated from the lobster pots, and this was some of the metal rings that were anchoring the ropes across the coastline, and then there was netting, and then this was from looking into the distance and the sea. So there's kind of like a nice mix of lines. Oh, and those red dots, which were actually the buoys lying on the sand as the tide had gone out. So a kind of a mix of things, and I kind of like the breathable space. So it's kind of interesting, and I kind of like this way that this has kind of formed this little opening and this little space, like light space. So that's the first page. This one, arguably not so interesting. Again, a mix of marks and colours, so that's okay. And then this one quite dark because it was from the middle of the paper where there wasn't so much white space. But again, I kind of quite like the variety of marks and the feel of the sea, and the white space sort of dotted around. And you couldn't do that on purpose, I don't think. It just kind of happens serendipitously, and this is what these booklets are so wonderful at. And you'll see it's a different format to my usual, which has been squares when I did the monthly seasons mark making. This is one of my favourite pages. I think this has a real feel of the sea, and I like the fact that you've got intensity of blue, but you've got breathable space as well. And I like this kind of big swirly, which actually came originally when I was making those marks from the big sort of tubs that attach to the side of a boat. It's kind of interesting how this has formed this nice mark and different lines and different edges actually, and there you can see where it's been sprayed, and then sharper edges, and then I kind of like this sort of murky grey and this sort of cauliflower effect. So there's a kind of a variety of different effects on that page, and I like that, and I like the white space again, and these orange buoys that are appearing. Obviously the lines as well. Go to the next page. Oh yes, I like this because I like the contrast of colours and shapes. So this came from actually a very red boat because they've been painting it in the harbour. And then obviously you've got the lobster pots again, the netting, the marks from the sand, the sea. So there's a kind of a real, I think, a real feel of the sea and of the harbour to this one. And these ones are all about, of course, the harbour and then looking out across the sea. And the different sort of marks. I kind of like that when you shake it, and you get quite an intensity of colour when you shake the brush. Quite like that. It's very sea-like, choppy. I like this ring here. And I kind of like the different textures you get from the different sorts of things. So the black is charcoal, and I've got Inktense pencil, and I've got one of the woody pencils, and this is soft pastel, as is the red, because I didn't have red paint. And then the blue is paint, and obviously there was spraying going on and all sorts of things. So, and this one arguably less successful, but I do like these hoops because they come from the ladders that go down to the harbour to enable people to get onto the boats. And these markings here, which were across the sand, you see making these sort of marks in the sand, sort of really interesting. And this came from the railings. So I kind of like the mix here. Maybe not quite successful as some of the pages, but. And this one, again, you've got those ladders going down, the ladders that go down, and kind of a sort of messy page actually, with just lines that probably are from the ropes of the boats and things. And this is from the windows of boats. So it's a kind of a bit of a mishmash, this page. And the red there, I'd have kind of liked it if we'd have had some red again on another part of the page, but this is the way that when these things are folded, you've no idea of what things are going to be where. This one, talking of the red in different places, this one is arguably more successful because you've got some red coming through here, and then you've got it in a different way, but nevertheless red here. And I quite like, again, those reminiscent lobster box shapes and the buoys. And this actually was from the buildings along the edge. I didn't want to draw the buildings literally, but I did put some of the colours in and some of the blocks. And so that's it. But I kind of think it's quite an interesting little booklet. I'm pleased that I did it in this format, and I kind of like the fact that it's more of a landscape format than my other ones. I'll put it back onto this was the first page. So anyway, something a bit different this week, and I will be back, as I say, at the gallery because my exhibition Landscape Inside Out continues through April 2022 and through May 2022, finishing on June the 4th. So if you haven't been in your local, it will be wonderful to see you. Do also be aware that there is a catalogue that can be bought, and that catalogue has all 70 paintings from myself and from Hugh, and also the introduction text and all of the details of each of the paintings, and that is on sale, and I'll put the link in the details, and if you click on that link you don't immediately purchase it or anything, but you'll see more of the information on what it's all about, and it's £14 including postage. So if you want one of those, quite a lot of them have sold, but there are a few left, so and they're signed by both of us. So just click on the link and we'll be posting them out to you. So as usual, please do like and subscribe if you're not already, and I'd love to have your comments, and I'll catch you next time. So thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.